Did you know that loneliness is being recognized as a widespread public health crisis? Roughly half of adults are said to be affected by loneliness and social isolation. I'm Natalie, and I've been an adult and geriatric physical therapist for over 23 years, and this is the world that I enter on the daily with my elderly patients. And I'd say the majority of them experience some degree of social isolation or loneliness. We were made for human connection. And in this video, we will discuss which populations are most affected and why, the serious impact loneliness can have, and some strategies to promote connection and well-being for your aging loved one. Interestingly, they've found that two age groups that are most affected by loneliness and social isolation follow a U-shaped curve. On one side of the curve are young adults age 18 to 30, and on the other side of the U-shaped curve are seniors aged about 75 and up. We can certainly speculate as to why the younger folks are struggling, and what comes to my mind, just a few things, would be technology, remote work. We can do almost everything online, including, we can order things and have them delivered to our door, even our groceries. We don't have to get out much at all, if even ever, and interact with people. I think those are just some of the contributing factors. I think probably those COVID years affected that age group as well in terms of the social isolation during that time. This social isolation can lead to depression and anxiety, and can also present as physical and mental health problems, and in some cases can take a dark turn. I'm not a mental health expert, but please seek help if you or a loved one is struggling. And we will link a helpful resource in our show notes description. Physically, loneliness can take a serious toll. It is linked to a 29% increase risk of heart disease, a 32% increased risk of stroke, and a 50% increased risk of dementia in our older folks. Let that sit a minute. This means that loneliness is more than just an emotion or a state of being, but it can actually have detrimental physical implications. Zooming in on our elderly population, what I've observed through the years is that there are some common threads that lead to or relate to loneliness and social isolation. Their days of working, raising a family, running a household, volunteering in the community, things that serve others and give them purpose are usually long over with by the time I meet my patients. Being needed and contributing at work, to a family, and to society provides so much meaning and value, and once all of that disappears, particularly after retirement, I've noticed a considerable dip in patients' mood, their motivation, and their energy. I even had a patient, whom we'll call Tom, who told me years ago that after he retired from his very high-level corporate job with a lot of responsibilities, a lot of people depending on him, he did not know what to do with himself. He found himself sort of going down, and we'll call it like a slump, or just kind of in that, I don't know what to do. I don't feel purposeful anymore. And he decided he did not like that feeling of having no purpose. So he organized a men's group that started out as like a men's golf group, and just to give himself community. And they called themselves the PIPs, the previously important people. I found that pretty clever. Other things to consider that often lead people into this lonely and isolated state are impairments such as hearing. So being hearing impaired to some degree is extremely common. and it can be very isolating. I remember my father-in-law, after he had his stroke, which affected his speech, and his speech became somewhat garbled. He lived in an assisted living, and he got to where he dreaded going to the dining room for communal meals because the table mates couldn't hear and he didn't speak clearly. So it became this clashing of everything, and it was frustrating, I think, for everyone. This is not to be underestimated or overlooked. Everybody brings a little different, something to the table, literally. And these can be barriers, big barriers to feeling that community, even when people are around you. Other big factors to this loneliness and social isolation crisis are many of these patients are widowed, or they become widowed in this stage of life. And not only that, a lot of them, their friends, or the majority of their friends, have passed away also. Everything they've known starts to change, and it can be really difficult. They become more down in the dumps. They can become more depressed and lonely. The support networks that were once around them are no longer. Another thing I hear, whether they actually verbalize it or it's just kind of an understood implication, is I don't want to burden my family. It's just a resounding thing. My own mother says this all the time. I don't want to trouble you. I don't want to put you out. I know you're busy. And so I think many people don't want to reach out to their own, say, adult children, because they know that many of us in midlife are still working. We may still have kids under our roof or, responsibilities, and we're in a busy phase of life. That is another big contributing factor, I would say. So what are some solutions? How can we intervene? I'll just say this, I don't think we could put a Band-Aid on it and fix it. However, I think there are things we can encourage that may certainly help. One of them would be encouraging that aging loved one to get some outdoor time. If they're ambulatory, meaning if they can still walk, go outside, or if they're wheelchair bound, have someone wheel them outside, sit in nature, sit on the porch, get some sunshine, enjoy the creation and just some fresh air. I think that does our mood at any age a lot of good. Also, some exercise. I'm a big proponent of exercise. I think to whatever extent your loved one is able, just movement. Maybe they can do some higher level type things, or maybe it's just whatever they can. But I think movement that gets blood flow going, that makes us feel better. Certainly that is something I would encourage. Also, if you're around them, listen to them. Listen to their stories. They have a lot to share. They have a lot of life experience. They have a lot of wisdom. Often, I believe we can validate their life and their importance, even if they don't still feel important at this time, and they were once very needed and valued. And when we just listen to them and respect them and what all they've gone through, I believe that goes a long way. Also, there's certainly medications if, that needs to be addressed with their provider to maybe enhance their mood a little bit. And then I would just say, if they live in an independent living or an assisted living type place, goodness, hopefully there's a great activity director there and that there's a nice calendar of activities. And maybe they don't need to go to everything, but certainly to have them, pick out several things through the week, whether it's entertainment, like music entertainment or arts and crafts. I either have people who love or hate bingo. You're either a bingo lover or a bingo hater. But if they like some things like that, to attend that. Certainly the mealtime, again, it's communal. You can, at least have some sense of people around you and get to know some people. Recently, my own mother-in-law, in the last 6 months, I'd say, has moved from living alone in her home for decades. And she liked being alone. She considers herself an introvert. She likes to read and crochet and do things that, she's good with that. Once she moved into this independent living place, it was almost like she didn't even know she needed that connection, those friends, those people just to share you're in a similar phase of life and just share things with, go to social activities. And I will just say she is thriving there, and we are thrilled for that. And I will end by saying that sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zone a little bit and try something new. Maybe it's going to the senior center. Maybe it's reaching out to someone you don't know well to see if they could have lunch. Encourage your aging loved ones to do some of these things and step out of their comfort zone a little bit if they need that nudge. And I believe that these strategies will help enhance that loneliness and isolation that they may be feeling. Thank you for joining me today. And if you found healthful connections here, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend or a loved one. If you found this video helpful, I know you're going to like this one.